This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Hey guys, Jay here. Welcome to Models Memories Weekly, episode 199. Models Memories is a show about nothing and is filmed in front of a live studio audience. This is a show where we're talking about painting, modeling, and wargaming experiences from the week. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Jay, you put out 3 videos a week. How? Could I possibly have more to say? Well, I do, and here goes. This week, Games Workshop came out with a mini that has a very fun hat, and I have been thoroughly enjoying all of the Grotmist detachments for 40k. I think it's probably one of the most interesting and exciting things to ever happen to 40k. But first, do you know what today's sponsor and the Grotmist detachments have in common? They both feature the internet and squares. Squarespace allows anyone to design the website of their dreams with the most powerful and easiest design tools in the industry, like Design Intelligence. Using AI technology empowers anyone to build a more personalized website tailored to their needs, crafting a bespoke digital identity. Choose from a professionally curated selection of styling options to build a unique online presence from the ground up. Squarespace makes sure it's easy to launch your website and get discovered fast with integrated optimized SEO tools, so you'll show up more often to more people and grow the way you want. With Squarespace, it's never been easier to set up a unique online storefront. Whether your services are physical, digital, or service-based, selling your wares has never been easier. Squarespace offers unmatched ability to showcase your unique wares with images, video, reviews, and add-ons, all capped off with their seamless checkout tools, letting your customers use whatever system they prefer, whether Klarna, ACH Direct Deposit, Apple Pay, Afterpay, or ClearPay. Squarespace offers a free trial for you to dip your feet into and test the waters, and ready to dive in headfirst, you can go to squarespace.com/EonsOfBattle or follow the link in the description below to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Chop dragons down to size with the legendary Wormslayer of Brettonian. My favorite thing ever was reading the first line of the first paragraph of this page and then looking at the miniature. Brettonian nobles are as hardcore as they come. And then you scroll down and you see this really goofy fella with a hat that is a dragon with wings, and it's like a third the size of him. Honestly, I almost feel like they should have gone bigger with the hat because the model is the hat. And so I feel like the hat is almost appropriately sized. Like if anyone's ever been to like a cosplay con or something and you see like the booths have those like silly hats that are pretty big, this feels like one of those pretty big hats, but still in the realm of reality. I think they like if this guy was sculpted back in the Disney, I feel like that hat would be absolutely enormous. And why not? Why not make it absolutely hilariously big? I feel like this model is almost too reasonable. His axe is a reasonable size, his little shield is a reasonable size, all of his clothing like fits well. I think they could have gone sillier. The mustache, love the stash. Like everything about him is fun. I would have played around with the proportions a little bit because Old World has that silliness to it. I'm sure that Sean will be picking up this model one of these days. Sean, well, when we're getting into Old World, slowly but surely, Sean got the Brettonians and I have my dwarves. I painted so many dwarves, and I still have so many dwarves to paint, but I have so many dwarves. For anybody getting into Old World, I highly recommend trying to like eBay snipe and buy things off of people because don't pay modern Games Workshop prices for those old school minis. And I just think it's more fun. Like part of the fun of Old World is enjoying that game from so long ago, and I think it's more fun to like dust off old, kind of poorly put together, badly primed minis than it is to clip these old sprues with horrible mold lines from a brand new shiny box. I think there's just more fun in like hunting and searching for the old school stuff. And it's kind of fun for army building because you might not get the stuff that you really want in your army. You get the stuff that you can get. And I think that leads to a little bit more interesting games. But this guy, the Wormslayer, he is a lot of fun. But speaking of things that are a lot of fun, Games Workshop, this Christmas, this holiday season, they came out with a brand new detachment for every single thing in 40k. And I remember at the launch of 10th edition, when they teased digital rules, I was really, really excited for what this could offer. And Games Workshop has sorta kinda delivered. They're still doing the codex thing, which is really, really lame. Because originally, all the rules are free. But as they've been releasing codexes, you're meant to purchase the codex and then put the code from the codex into the app, which you pay for to get full list building privileges. And that's the only way to see the points cost in the list building alongside the actual game rules. It's pretty lame. just Games Workshop. Just make it all a subscription service or make it all free. That would be another really, really good option. But it is kind of lame. Games Workshop holding on to the codexes because it still makes the money. But that's really, really lame. I've accidentally got the Tau Codex because I bought the Kroot hunting pack box, and so it came with the codex. It's fine, I read it. It's nothing special. It's mostly the same lore from the old 5th edition Tau Codex. I think there's like 1 or 2 new paragraphs, and of course there's like new data sheets. But they're not even doing new pages of lore for some of the new units. Honestly, there was almost more Kroot lore in the White Dwarf issue that I bought. The codexes are fine. They've served their purpose. I still sell them because it's kind of fun to have. Like I remember when I was a little kid in high school and I had my Necron codex and it would come with me in my backpack to school every single day, and I read it and reread it and reread it. Like there's some fun, but don't make it a necessity to buy the book so that I can get the Webkinz code so that I can put that into my app. It's bad. It's bad. You didn't hear this from me. But there's other ways to get the rules if you have internet access. But tangents aside, the great thing about digital rules is they can update and add to them whenever they want. And this holiday season, we got 30 new detachments, 1 detachment for every single faction and sub-faction in the game of Warhammer 40,000. It's phenomenal. I've read almost all of these attachments. There's like 30. I don't even know if Tactical Tortoise himself could rattle off all 30. Maybe Inky, but it's a lot of new rules, but it's really, really exciting. Of course, I was super excited for the new Black Templar detachment, which is not as good as Righteous Crusade. But to be fair, nothing is as good as Righteous Crusade. It might be the best Space Marine detachment in the game currently. I still think it's a lot of fun. Black Templar, Wrathful Procession, and it very much is a procession because it seems to be built around taking 20-man blobs of Crusaders. There's a stratagem that lets you have a 3-inch combat range, which is actually kind of game-changing because it means that you can sort of pull off riskier charges or multi-charge a bunch of units and still get every single guy swinging his chainsword and power fist. It's pretty great. You do miss out on a couple of things from Righteous Crusade, but I think it does make up for it. There's a Fights First enhancement that is once per game, but if you can pull it off in the right situation and scenario, it can be pretty darn good, especially since they nerfed my leaders. They nerfed like Helbrecht and Grimaldus, and actually Emperor's Champion is still around. So he's still at the normal price, so he's still very viable in game. All of them are still very viable in game because they're really, really good. But now they're pointed maybe a little bit more fairly, and so it's harder to take them all on the list. But you can't take enhancements on epic heroes, so I've been bringing my little sergeant, or my lieutenant, who is my baby Helbrecht, and he's gonna get that enhancement, and he's gonna get to fight first, and it's gonna be glorious. One thing I was wondering about when I saw that they were coming out with detachments is, are they gonna be any good? Games Workshop promised that they would all be tournament legal, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're all gonna be good. For the most part, they're all pretty darn good. There's a few outliers that are kind of just trash, but for the most part, I mean, some of these detachments are almost kind of busted. One that I was really surprised is the Necron Shattered Arsenal. This is a detachment all about the Necron vehicles, and Necrons have some of the best vehicles in the game. Like, we get 5-up invuln saves on vehicles, which is just gnarly, and they're really, really good at shooting. Like, this detachment seems wickedly good. Oh, and then the Thousand Suns Hex Warp Thrall Band. I was talking with Sean about this because he plays the Thousand Suns. It's real bad. It's really, really bad. The Thousand Suns are in a weird spot right now because their units are kind of underpowered because of how good their basic detachment is. And so this kind of keeps the units bad, but it does give sorcerers a little bit of a benefit. Probably not taking that many sorcerers. It's kind of got something, it's almost a little bit from Age of Sigmar, the bad moon mechanic of different parts of the battlefield are empowered at different parts of the game. But it's hard to make sure that what you want to happen is happening in those locations at the right time, and you have the sorcerers where you need them to be. And sorcerers are kind of just Space Marines. They're not the most survivable thing in general. Kind of a really bad detachment, but that's okay because there's the Death Guard Flyborn Host, I play Death Guard, and this detachment seems really fun. I was at my friendly local game store. I was actually playing some Moonstone, but the table next to me was a guy trying out this detachment. It looks like a lot of fun. Usually, like with Death Guard, you bring Morty, you bring a bunch of stuff, but this detachment is all about the infantry. In fact, all of your infantry that don't start the game, that are not embarked in transports, get Stealth and Scout 5. That is a really interesting combination of abilities. All of a sudden, your super slow boys are a little bit faster and -1 to be hit. That's not bad. That's a lot of fun for a Death Guard swarm list. Unfortunately, it doesn't work on the zombies, but that's okay because I don't want to take the zombies. I want to take the Death Guard, and the Death Guard are really cool. I've been wanting Death Guard Terminators. There's Blight Shroud Terminators, and then there's Blight Lord Terminators, the ones who aren't Death Shroud, the normal Terminators. I've been wanting them to be really good, and they are really good. They're Terminators, but they're not as good as the Death Shroud Terminators. Although, to be fair, Death Shrouds are squads of 3, the regular Blight Lord Terminators are squads of 5, so there is a little bit more survivability in just numbers. And bringing a bunch of those guys, all with stealth in combination with their invuln saves, 2-up armor saves, and there is a stratagem that lets them have the pistol keyword on all of their weapons. So all of a sudden they're shooting in a close combat with their combi weapons and plague spewers and plague launchers. They're kind of good. They're kind of really spicy in this detachment. The Tyranids Warrior Bioform Onslaught, the Tyranid Warrior Spam Necron or Tyranid list. This one is really fun. They just picked a unit. They're like Tyranid Warriors. For the people out there who have tons and tons of Tyranid Warriors, this is the army list for you. Just makes Tyranid Warriors better. So spam them to high heaven. It's great. Ooh, but speaking of things that are absolutely great, the Imperial Agents Veiled Blade Elimination Force, a detachment for the Agents of the Imperium. This one's another one that's really bad. It's built around the Assassins, which are fun models, and you do get them for a little bit cheaper if you bring them in an Agents of the Imperium army. I think they're like 120 to 140 points if you purchase them for anything else, but they're 100 points base in an actual Agents army. But this detachment is really awkward in that it forces you to purchase like 40-point enhancements for each of your Assassins, kind of making them way too expensive for what they are. And sure, they get better. They were already kind of cracked, but on a toughness 3 body, that's really killable. So yeah, not the most exciting detachment, but it's kind of fun. I feel like if you're playing an Agents army, you're playing it for fun. Ooh, but speaking of fun, the Drukhari Reaper's Wager. This one is bizarre. And if you read, I think a lot of people kind of miss exactly how this works. But so you split your army right down the middle and you take 1,000 points of Drukhari and 1,000 points of Harlequins. And every time your Drukhari kills something, your Harlequins get empowered. And every time your Harlequins kill something, your Drukhari get empowered. This can flip-flop multiple times in a phase. So all of a sudden, you're trying to set up your game where you can bounce between the different units. Like if you charge a large portion of your army, you have to make sure a Drukhari unit fights, and then a Harlequin unit, and then a Drukhari unit, and then a Harlequin unit, so that you can try to keep them empowered. It's a really weird mechanic, but I'm here for it. I like the Harlequins a lot. I do want to play this detachment because it's so bizarre. Like having the rule flip-flop multiple times every single phase is hilarious. And then you're almost playing a game with yourself. What's gonna do more damage, the Harlequins or the Drukhari? I don't know which one would. Harlequins hit like a truck and they have like a 4-up invuln across the board. But Drukhari, they got some sneaky shenanigans and they can use their blood dice. I wonder, Harlequins can't use blood dice? I wouldn't think they can because they don't have a Drukhari keyword. So your Drukhari are kind of brought up to the level of the Harlequins by using their pain tokens. So there's definitely something there. It's just a weird way to play the game, and I like it. Speaking of things that are absolutely weird, Orc Take It All Brigade, spelt in an incredibly funky way. This is just an Astra Militarum detachment for the Orcs. They get to take orders. is hilarious. This is based around like commandos, but not necessarily taking lots of units of orc commandos. It's just like the orcs pretending to be Astra Militarum. And I like to think they're wearing like stolen coats and medals and stuff as they're preparing for war and just literally pretending and play acting as an Imperial Guard army. Ooh, the Space Marine Librarius Conclave. I felt a little bit like nasty reading this because I'm a Black Templar player and we would never even think about owning a librarian, much less fielding one. But this detachment is actually kind of cool. Librarians, they're not the greatest HQ choice or like hero character, but they're like 55 to 60 points. They're really, really cheap. So it's not that big a deal to spam them. And you do get some kind of nice enhancements and stratagems that utilize the power of the librarians. I think it's just kind of an interesting army list to bring a bunch of librarians, have them attached to a bunch of different Space Marine units, and make those Space Marine units better. It kind of reminds me a little bit of how the Blood Angels army rule works, where you can just give, I think, +2 strength and then +1 AP to any unit that charged. It's a little bit like just buff, when you can tweak the stat line of just random units, those units all of a sudden take on a different life and you kind of look at them a little bit more closely. And so I think it's a really, really nice detachment, even if it might not be the most powerful one. Oh, and speaking of things that just got better, not the Scintillating Legion, the Chaos Demon's Scintillating Legion, doesn't that sound like Slaanesh? No, that's Tzeentch. The Slaanesh one is just Legion of Excess. This one is just good. Like you take all of the different units that are part of Slaanesh and you just make them better. They have, they have a stratagem. It's their army rule that basically it takes away fights first if you had it. There are certain Slaaneshi characters that give you fights first, but instead of fights first, you just get, I think, +1 to your hit and wound. That's just ridiculously good. It's really hard to get benefits to your wound roll. Games Workshop is pretty cautious about giving things +1 to wound because it's really crazy powerful. But it's on Demonette fists and the weird tractor things that the Demonettes have. So I think it's very fair. And I'm just excited to play some Slaaneshi demons. If I was to play a demon army, I think it would be some Slaaneshi demons. You know, there's something to Tzeentch. I don't care about Khorne. Nurgle is good, but I already play Death Guard, so I think it would be Slaanesh. And it's fun that there is now official rules for a pure Slaanesh force. The Astra Militarum Bridgehead Strike. This just seems like a really solid detachment in general. My buddy Sean was poo-pooing this one a little bit. I think it reads excellently. You don't get the same benefits that you do with the normal Imperial Guard detachment. And I know like a lot of people are comparing these to especially one detachment armies right now. And if this isn't quite as powerful as the regular detachment, then these are kind of ignored. But I think there's a lot of fun juice in this. There is one detachment, I think it's called On My Position. And you take a squad of, I think, Tempestus Scions or anything with deep strike, so I guess it could be Khazarkin, and you call down an orbital laser on yourself. And so it does D6 damage to any unit, I believe, within 6 inches of your unit, but it does 3d3 damage to your own unit. So it'll probably do some pretty decent mortal wound damage to your opponent, but it is definitely going to do a ton of damage to your own unit. This is just adorable. It's super fun and flavorful, and it's too bad that you can't ever deep strike within 3 inches anymore. Now it's a 6-inch bubble, which does limit things quite a bit, but maybe if you're able to rapid ingress in your opponent's turn, and then you can run into the perfect position where you can tag like 3 or 4 different units, it'd be really fun to call upon the space laser and just nuke the battlefield. It's very, very 40k. The Genestealer Cult got a really fun attachment in Final Day. This is one where you have Genestealer Cult units, essentially puppy guarding Tyranid units. You can kind of split your army right down the middle and bring half Tyranid and half Genestealer Cult. And your Genestealer Cult can feed wounds. They can heal your Tyranid units. And your Genestealer Cult units just get a little bit better in general, because I believe they get like +1 to hit if they're within a certain range of your Tyranid Synapse units. This one is good. I think there's some play with some of the bigger bugs that can't necessarily be one-shotted, so that, you know, if your Carnifex or your Hive Tyrant gets brought down to 2 or 3 remaining wounds, you can just suck the wounds off of your Genestealer Cult units and heal them back up. So I think there is definitely some really, really fun play to this detachment. Oh, and the Leagues of Votann Hearthband. This is kind of another stinker. The Leagues of Votann are another one of those armies where their units are severely underpowered because their detachment is so incredibly overpowered. And so it all kind of balances out when you're using that specific detachment. But with this detachment, you're kind of just stuck with your kind of poopy units, only getting a little bit better instead of every single thing in the opponent's army having a grudge token. I'm excited for the Squat Codex because right now they're in a little bit of a weird spot. Oh, and the Adeptus Sororitas Champions of Faith. This is my really horrible take. I think that this is a great detachment. You can trade in 3 of your miracle dice for, I think it's just +1 to hit, it's reroll 1s to hit and wound, which is great. I think that's a really, really solid ability, but it is failable, which I prefer because I hate going up against Adeptus Sororitas armies because their miracle dice are garbage. You just get to substitute in an automatic success. There should never be an auto success in Warhammer 40k. It's really not fun to play when I'm pounding away at a castigator or something and I'm like, yes, I rolled, my dice rolled a little bit hot, it dies. And then my opponent's like, nope, 4 up, I made my save. And he didn't have to try. It's so frustrating. I get why miracle dice are really, really fun for the controlling player, but they're not much fun for the enemy. And so I think getting to trade 3 of those in for just better dice in your actual attacks, I think that that's a little bit better. I don't know. It'll be interesting. I don't know. They already got their codex, so miracle dice are here to stay. Although I think there's rumblings that they might get changed again. Miracle dice, along with just Space Marines in general, are one of those things that keep getting like fine-tuned over the course of the game because, yeah, it is unfair to automatically pass rolls. There are so many of these detachments. Most of them are pretty darn fun. The Adeptus Custodes one, built around like the Telemon Dreadnoughts, like the really, really cool and really, really expensive Forge World Dreadnoughts, is awesome. It actually shares a lot in common with the Tyrannid Big Bug detachment, where if things are brought, if they have a certain benefit if they're at their starting strength, and then they have another benefit if they're below their starting strength, and that does work well for multi-wound vehicles. And so I think it's a really, really interesting detachment. At Games Workshop, if you want people to play that detachment and not just 3D print their dreadnoughts, please make them in plastic. They're some of the coolest kits in the game, but they cost Forge World prices, so it's a real pain in the butt. Custodes are a really fun army in that they're actually pretty cheap to collect because you need so few miniatures. But then comes like a certain break point in collecting a Custodes army where you're like, okay, I've spent like $300, I've got a nice force, 2,000 points, everything's looking nice. Do I drop $500 to round this out with the Forge World units? It's not fair. This is the sort of thing that I'm really excited for Warhammer 40,000 moving forward, because this is 30 detachments just dropped on us, all free, all totally viable, totally playable. Like, this is the sort of stuff that you can do with digital rules. Don't even do editions anymore. 10th edition is fine. It can use a little bit of fudging here and there and a little polishing, but just keep dumping new free rules and new ways to play the game, because that's what this is. This is DLC. This is new ways to play Warhammer 40,000. And usually, this sort of stuff only happens when we get a new edition. I remember in the switch from 7th edition to 8th edition, when we got the indexes that you had to buy, all of a sudden the game was new and it was easy to get all of the rules. And so it was easy to just play the game in different ways all the time. And then, it just went back into the normal cycle of 40k with codexes. But this is essentially almost everything got a new 4 or 5 pages added to their codex. This is awesome. This is how 40k, I think, keeps going and keeps being an interesting war game, because 40k is different than a lot of other war games. A lot of other war games are kind of board game plus. They're board games with just a little bit more rules, or you just use a tape measure. But 40k is something special, and I think this is one of the reasons why it's so special. It's gonna take me the rest of the year to play all these detachments and to try them out and to see what they're like and what they feel like. And it's just really, really cool. Almost as cool as EonsOfBattle.com. EonsOfBattle.com is the place to find our new merch, like the Nick and J dice. In my experience, the J dice do roll a little bit better, although Nick says that his blue dice roll better, which I find a little bit hard to believe. But in addition to our merch, EonsOfBattle.com is the best way to support us doing what we do with a membership. Each month, members get 1 credit that they can use on our new monthly terrain packs or any previous pack we have ever made. For the month of January, we made The Fall Part 2, Guns, Big Guns. This set focuses on printable high-caliber ordnance ready to rock a battlefield. This set features the enormous battle cannon, a building-sized gun encased in a gothic shrine for sending 100-pound shells into orbits, the sun cannon, an energy turret for throwing hot balls of glowing energy across the landscape, and the humble field artillery for mopping up whatever is left. This set perfectly complements the Fall buildings and is the second of 3 sets focused on getting a proper 40k board up and running as easily as possible. In terms of which detachments I'm the most excited to play, I definitely got to give it to the Death Guard. The Tau one is a little bit interesting. It kind of leads towards building an even split between Vespid, Kroot, and regular Tau guys. And I do have to try out the Black Templar one because I played so much Space Marines. I've played so much Space Marines in 10th edition with Righteous Crusade, and it's good. It's fine. I've lost, 40 games or so, but maybe this new detachment will turn it all around. Thanks for watching.